Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Keith, and welcome to my recap of this week's episode of The Bachelorette. Yes, I'm a couple of days late, but I'm here. Ladies and gentlemen, it was Meet the Parents week, don't you know? This was the opportunity for Rachel to march these three remaining men one by one to her home to meet the family. And it was interesting. First, or maybe not first, but they met Brian. I don't remember the order. They met Brian. And of course, the family was like, this guy says all the right things. You think? That's what's gotten him to this point, because anytime, Rachel, leaves a little cracker out, he just scoops it up and says the perfect thing, and that's why he is my pick to win, because this guy, in her eyes, can do no wrong. Parents weren't necessarily, the family wasn't necessarily buying it, but she is. Then there was Eric. They were a little skeptical about Eric at first. Is he really ready for this? But then Eric tells her that he loves her, and I believe he loves her. Because did you see the amount of lipstick she was wearing when he kissed her? If you're kissing a woman with that much lipstick on, that's love. Then there was Peter. Now, Peter's a little skeptical. The family liked Peter, and that was all good. But Peter's a little kind of skeptical of the whole process. His whole mindset is, listen, I don't want to rush into things. I want to take my time. Well, good on you, Peter. Peter knows the stats. He knows that people who go through this process in The Bachelor and The Bachelorette don't tend to make it. And his whole thing is he wants to take his time. But Rachel doesn't like that. Her whole thing is, I didn't come on the show just to have a boyfriend. Okay, fair. But then, you have to also look at it from the point of view of, you've only been spending a minimum amount of time with this person over the last few weeks. This is like one of those TLC shows, like Get Engaged in 90 Days or something. No, you need to take your time and get to know somebody. That's what you do. Anyways, so there are a couple of other little interesting things in the show. So first of all, I understand that Rachel, anybody in this position, they do have a lot of pressure on them. They have people who are scrutinizing the things that they do and that sort of thing. But you also have to hand it to her, because she is, I would say, a pretty classy person. I mean, she knows what she wants, and she's going after it, and she's not running around and like in the hot tub making out with everybody. She's not that person. But the flip side of things is then she makes the comment in terms of, I've sacrificed so much. Now, I appreciate you've taken time away from your family and time away from your job, and I hope that's the only sacrifice you're talking about, because other than that, life for you, from my point of view, is pretty good. You've got 31 guys, or you started off with 31 guys vying for your attention, whether you were interested in them or not. You've been flown around the world. You've been given all these exotic, gowns to wear. You've had, musical acts and different people showing up. You have celebrities showing up. It's a pretty good life. So don't cry for me, Argentina, because things seem to be going pretty well for you. Now, next week's episode is The Men Tell All, which under normal circumstances I wouldn't care about, but it brings back Iggy and Diggy, so I can't wait. And then we've got the finale. Now, I'm picking Brian. Who are you guys picking? Peter, I don't necessarily like his chances. I don't even necessarily know if he's could be in the running for the next Bachelor, given his whole, proclivity to wanting to jump into things. I don't necessarily like Eric's chances. I do think it's going to be Brian, but I could be wrong. We'll see. Overall, interesting episode. Didn't set the world on fire. We know that we can recap and say that Brian is still a kiss up. Peter is sensible and wants to take things at their due course, and by all means, Eric definitely loves her. And by the way, how envious is it for Rachel to have all these men saying I love you to her, and she doesn't have to say anything back? Can you imagine that, being in a relationship and your partner comes and says I love you, and you're just like, aw, thanks. Yeah, in the real world that doesn't usually fly, because in the real world you usually hear, I think I just said I love you, and then you are definitely required to respond with something other than okay, thanks. Anyways, thank you so much for checking this out. As always, you can reach out to me on Twitter at CFL_fan, Facebook.com/WittyWhittier, and WittyWhittier.com. Thank you so much for checking this out. I will see you next week, and until then, take care.